Good afternoon and welcome to Spartan Life Radio. I'm your host, Cheryl Wilkerson. Sunday afternoon, I know you could be doing some other things. I want to say thank you in advance. We have two great guests that are lined up for today. Right now, we're going to welcome a young man, a Spartan, Don Carey. He has done his thing on the football field here, and then he said, you know what, there is more work to be done, and he has run and won a seat on the Chesapeake City Council, and he's joining us today. Welcome to Spartan Life Radio.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to our conversation.
Okay, so I always like to go back before I go forward. How did you end up at Norfolk State University?
So, Norfolk State University was the first higher institution campus I ever stepped on. My cousin, who went to Morgan State in the early 2000s, played football there, and I remember going to a football game there and watching him play. And I thought it was a pretty cool school. I can one day come here. And by God's grace, it happened.
That is pretty cool. And you made a name for yourself here on the football field, went on to bigger pastures and everything. But let's talk about this whole political world. So while you were here at Norfolk State playing football, was politics in the back of your mind?
No, not at all.
I mean, how did that happen?
When I was at Norfolk State, I was heavily involved in the community, right? So we had community, activist programs, and I don't know if a lot of people know if they still do it, but Norfolk State University athletics has always been heavily involved in the community around Norfolk. Mm-hmm. And I was blessed to serve the community while playing football, and community service has always been something that's been major to me. Even when I went to the NFL, I kept that tradition of serving the community that I learned at Norfolk State University. Every Tuesday, I would go out to the community and I would give back in some manner. And when I retired, trying to figure out, well, how can I continue to give back? And I thought politics would be a good way of doing it.
Every Tuesday, that reminds me of, I call him our cousin, that reminds me of Russell Wilson, how, he, in spite of playing football at the level that he does, he always makes time to give back to the community. You have that same spirit.
Yes.
And so when you were at Norfolk State and you were giving back to the community, like what things would you do? Like go to food banks or I'm not sure. I want you to paint that picture for me.
Sure. It's very easy. Serving at the food bank, packing food. Food bank is right around the corner from Norfolk State University, for those who don't know. There are also some senior living facilities around Norfolk State University. I'm thinking of one particularly off Park Avenue we would go to. And we would serve the elderly there. There's opportunities to have backpack drives or things of that nature that we would take full advantage of. So the athletic department made sure that there were opportunities for us to give back for those who were interested.
Okay, so it was like you said, the whole athletic department there. And so then when you went to the NFL, did you continue your own personal tradition of giving back, or was it set up within the teams you played for that they always gave back as well?
So teams sparingly have opportunities for players to give back. But it's the philanthropy that's done from an NFL standpoint is largely done through players. Mm-hmm. My wife and I founded our own nonprofit organization in which we ran all of our philanthropic work through in the city of Detroit, and would eventually grow that nonprofit to do work in Michigan, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia.
That is very impressive. That's reaching a lot of people. That's helping a lot of people. And, I say that because it's true, and I say that because you don't have to do that, but you've chosen to do that. That's special.
Yeah, it's something, it's definitely a burden that was placed on my heart, and I've never forgotten where I came from, and individuals have helped me along the way. Mm-hmm. So if I have the ability to assist someone else, then I take that opportunity.
If I can help somebody along the way, then my living is not in vain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So my father has a saying, success is not only defined by the number of milestones you obtain for yourself, but also by the number of people you reach back and pull along the way.
Wow. Some wisdom right there. And so when you left Norfolk State and you knew you were going to be drafted and everything, and you did this amazing football career, first of all, how did you know that this is enough of football? And then how did you know what your next move was going to be?
Sure. So the first question is easy. Football kind of tells you, your body tells you, your circumstances all outside of football tell you. So for me, NFL is a young man's game. Average age is 23, 25 years old. Mm-hmm. So when you play as long as I did, you're 30, 31, 32 years old. The conversations you have with players are vastly different. Your desires, the things you want out of life are vastly different. I was no longer wanting to go club. I was a family man. I had kids. I was going home. Mm-hmm. Football in general was weighing on my body. Joints, knees, hamstrings. Yes. I didn't heal like I used to, nor could I perform the same level that I used to. And ultimately, football was getting in the way of things I wanted to do off the field. I wanted to be a father to my children, which in order to be a good football player, you have to neglect your family to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do more with my nonprofit organization. I wanted to do more, in a political sphere. And I couldn't do that if I was at the facility 12 hours a day.
Makes sense. I heard a former professional football player say his body hurt every day. Is that true? Did you find that to be true?
My body still hurts every day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. All right. And before we get off of that and on to the politics, is that something you would want your children to do? Get involved with football?
If they desire. I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. I think my oldest son may not want to play sports. It's perfectly fine. Whatever he wants to do, I'll get on the University of YouTube and help him out with it. Mm-hmm. But I think my youngest son will. Okay. And as long as there's a desire and a willingness from his standpoint to play, mm-hmm. I'll teach him everything that I know. But it's going to be up to him. I'm not going to push any of my kids to do anything.
Okay, that sounds good. Wise dad right there, a wise dad. So when you hung up those cleats for the last time and you came back here to Virginia, what are some of the first steps you took?
Towards the political sphere?
No, just reacclimating yourself to the Hampton Roads area. Did you know at that point you were immediately going to jump into the politics, or how did that work?
Yeah, so it wasn't immediate. My wife and I have been planning since 2015 for a political run in Virginia. We began to lay the framework and foundations in. But when I retired, my main focus was to consolidate all the activities of the Reach Foundation, which is our nonprofit, mm-hmm. into the Norfolk and Chesapeake area. And we primarily brought all of our resources to this area. We shut down the work we were doing in other places to make sure we had a strong presence here.
Okay.
That was step one, was how do we solidify the Reach Foundation here? Because whether I get elected or not, whether I do whatever I plan to do, I was planning on doing, the Reach Foundation was going to be a big part of it.
You were still going to do that Reach Foundation, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That makes sense, yeah. Okay. And so you nailed that down, you tightened that up, and then what came next?
What came next is in 2020, I signed my qualification papers and began to run a campaign in the pandemic.
You are a brave man,
Yeah, I didn't know a pandemic was on the way when I decided to run. But you know what? There's a saying: if the conditions are the same for everybody, no one can really complain. So
I was going to say I don't even know you, but I'm like, you probably still would have done it if you had known the pandemic was coming.
Yes, mm-hmm. I actually saw it as an advantage, to be totally honest with you. Everyone else in the race had run campaigns outside of a pandemic, so they had to make serious adjustments during a pandemic where the pandemic was my normal. I didn't know any other way of doing things, so I didn't complain. Everything was a new opportunity for me.
Wow.
So I think that gave a slight advantage, maybe smaller than slight, but it did give some bit of an advantage.
Okay, and so when you came back to run for office, you knew what office you wanted to run for? Like, you don't want to be the city treasurer, you don't want to be, the county tax collector man or whatever. You knew you wanted to be city council?
I knew I wanted to set policy, yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. All right. So when you declared, what was that process like? If there's someone out there listening right now and they're thinking about it, can you walk them through that and tell them what to expect?
Sure. So the declaring you're running for council is pretty simple. You need to go to your local registrar's office and collect your qualification papers, and you need 125 people outside of yourself to agree that your name can be placed on the ballot. Mm-hmm. Once they sign that petition, you turn those in, and you have officially declared that you're going to run for city council. At that point, there are some financial restrictions and reporting that you have to abide by. There are some campaign rules you have to abide by, but they're all minor, and you're off to the races.
And, many people think and say, and we hear in news reports all the time, that it costs so much money to run for office. Is that true on the local level?
It really depends on several factors. Name recognition is one. Mm-hmm. The size of your locality, your city is one. I forget the name of the vice mayor in Portsmouth, but he ran a campaign and only spent $5,000 in one. There was recently a gentleman who ran a campaign for a delegate seat and barely spent any money, and he won. But then you have individuals like Aaron Rouse. When he ran his campaign several years ago, he spent over $100,000 and he won. Mm-hmm. So it really varies with the situation of the locality. And you can find out by going to vpap.org and searching like the previous council or whatever the political seat you wanted to run in. You can search those races and kind of get a general idea of how much money you're going to have to raise or contribute to that race.
I want to get into some of the initiatives that you're working on right now, but I want to clear this up so everyone will hear you loud and clear. When people say, Don Carey, he's a Republican. Don Carey, he's an independent. Don Carey. What do you answer to that? How do you answer that? What do you say?
I tell them I'm an individual who is interested in solving issues that better the path that the city is on. I don't hide from the fact that I am a conservative individual who is a part of the Republican Party, mm-hmm. But I challenge people, just as you wouldn't want someone to look at you purely through the sphere of one aspect of yourself, don't look at another individual purely through the sphere of one aspect of their self. Right? So look at the totality of an individual and ascertain if their motives, if their value is something that can help you in your life.
So look what you're saying.
I'm saying don't own it.
Okay.
Right. I mean, you're going to, it's like saying, in my mind, it's like telling a black person, I don't see your color. Yeah. You see my color. Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm a part of a party, yes. But I'm also an individual in a party. So I'm not the totality of a party. Just like any African-American, not the totality of all African-Americans. But you are probably an African-American, but you are an individual at the same token.
Let's talk about some of these initiatives. Chesapeake Wow, what's that all about?
Right. So the Chesapeake World of Works, one of the main driving forces for me running for council was I saw a major disconnect in the city of Chesapeake in the way that we educate our kids and the way that we provide employment for our kids or just our citizens in general when they leave our education system. Chesapeake has one of the best school districts in the state and one of the tops in the country, I would add. But the disconnect is we don't have the type of jobs that will keep our brightest minds local. So I wanted to find a way to introduce these different careers to our young students at an 8th grade level. And what Chesapeake World of Works does, 8th grader in the city of Chesapeake to a centralized location for a super interactive and fun career fair where they can learn about the career opportunities for themselves.
Okay.
And 8th grade is important because that's when you begin to make the decisions on the magnet schools you want to go to, mm-hmm. the type of high school diploma you want to go after. That's when you begin to get an idea if you're going to go the military route, the collegiate route, or you want to go into the vocational route. And having an idea of what jobs are out there or careers are out there can really help steer you in that path. Moreover, the organizations that are a part, we are also raising funds to set up internships. We're contacting universities and higher learning institutions to set up dual enrollment programs.
Oh, great.
To help, create pathways, even if it's not a dual enrollment, to help create pathways that, okay, I take these courses in high school, and then I apply to this school, which is local, and that gives me the best chance of getting this job that I saw, at Chesapeake Wow.
Wonderful.
So we begin with 8th graders. October 2022, this year, we're going to bring over 3,000 8th graders to TCC Cedar Road over a 2-day period. And again, they'll be immersed in all of the job opportunities that we have here. In future years, will not only bring 8th graders, but we'll double back and bring 10th graders as well, as host different seminars on resume building and career and goal setting and all those things to kind of help reiterate what the students have learned. And it's really a compliment to the things they're trying to do.
Right.
And that our great school system is providing the education they're providing. So,
let's speak about the small business incubators that you are working on.
Yes. So the pandemic taught us a lot.
Oh.
The pandemic taught us just how far behind some of our small businesses are in terms of back office, in terms of being able to apply or knowing where to apply for grant self-sustain in the event of an emergency. Now, bad thing or good thing is just the way it is. In Chesapeake, if you apply for a grant or assistance, that grant or assistance comes in the form of a reimbursement. It comes in the form of a reimbursement,
okay.
Which means if your back office, if your accounting, if your reporting is not up to snuff, you're not going to be able to go after that reimbursement.
Right.
Right? Where other larger institutions who have an actual department of accounting could easily spit those numbers out in a report and apply for those grants. And that bothered me. That bothered me deeply. And I'm not a person who thinks that government solves and is the answer to all things. But I do think if we're going to have the criteria of a reimbursement, then there should be some effort to assist in knowledge of what is necessary to obtain that reimbursement. And I don't think the city would object to what I just said. It's just finding a methodology and a mechanism of, teaching or providing that information. And just like Chesapeake Wow, it's a public-private partnership. I'm sorry, I failed to mention that with Chesapeake Wow. It is not just, the city of Chesapeake or Don Carey that is doing this. We have partnered with the Hampton Roads Chamber, Hampton Roads Workforce Development. We've partnered with TCC. We've partnered with the Chesapeake Library and Chesapeake Schools to bring Chesapeake Wow together. In the same sense, we're looking for private sector organizations and companies to kind of help lead in the educating of our small business and our entrepreneurs in ways that their back office could be better in not just case of an emergency, but just to be able to be a productive business going and moving forward.
Excellent. You got your work cut out for you, and you are actually doing it. And what is this about a recognition policy?
Sure. So the city of Chesapeake, we have great, phenomenal residents, but we've yet to really hammer down the way that we recognize the greatness of our citizens. And I wanted to bring forth a logical, methodical way that our citizens can be recognized, and they can have some type of confidence, some type of assurance, some type of metric that they can measure their accomplishments off of to know just where they fall in that level of recognition. As of now, if an individual wants to be recognized, they try to have a building or a park or a lake named after them. And I mean, there are only so many buildings, parks, and lakes in the city. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or they try for a proclamation, and a proclamation becomes this all-encompassing deal where it's days, events, causes, and people. And I think the significance of it begins to water down. So I brought forth raw material ideas to City Council and asked their blessings to set up a committee so that we could hammer down different levels of recognition based off the accomplishments of an individual that would help them to be able, that would help us be able to recognize the greatness of that individual. And that individual could take some type of plaque or an award home with them, knowing that they're rightly recognized and it's recorded in the annals of our city.
You know, I can see other localities, municipalities or whatever, taking that idea and going with it because it's probably much needed across these United States.
Yeah. And that the beauty of what I'm doing is I'm from Norfolk, right? So I wasn't born in Chesapeake. So though everything I'm doing is for the betterment of Chesapeake, I always keep a regional, Virginia Beach wild. Easily becomes Norfolk wild. And this recognition policy could easily become a recognition policy of Virginia Beach, Norfolk, and Chesapeake if they so chose to adopt it. It's nothing that we have to do only, but I think it could be a pathway for other localities to kind of pick and choose from and make it their own.
This is a great conversation we're having. On the morning show around here, I always tell people if they're not pleased with something that they have to get involved with their communities, whether that's the PTA, whether that's sitting on some sort of commission. It may not even pay you to be on the committees. Constituent, if they see something, if they hear something, if something is going on, how vitally important it is for them to call, email, pick up the phone, meet you at an event, and let you know how they are feeling.
It's deeply important. All right, so particularly in the cities of Norfolk, Chesapeake, and Virginia Beach, these are three of the largest cities in the entire state, and they're ran by 7 to 11 individuals. We don't have the ability to know of every single situation, issue, occurrence that happens within the cities we serve. So if there is something that is bothering a citizen, pick the phone up and give us a call. Right? It is our job to be on the ready to answer the issues that are bothering our citizens from a municipal level. And I, for one, I have a policy that I answer every email to the best of my ability. I answer every email. I return every phone call because that's my job. I don't see myself as a lord over anyone. I'm not anyone's boss. I'm a representative, which means that I'm their closest contact to government. So if there's an issue that's necessary for government to fix, it is my job to take whatever that issue is seriously, to research that issue, and to execute righteous votes if necessary.
I'm sure there are people in Chesapeake that you pretty much know on a regular basis. You know their name, citizens I'm talking about, just Joe Blow average citizens. And that is because they have made themselves known and they keep in communication with you. And my hope is that all people would understand, like you said, that is your job. And they would take advantage of this policy that you have of working for your constituents. Yeah,
that's why we take the job to work for individuals. And I've had a lifetime of service for other individuals, and I don't see a need to change that mindset because I have been blessed to serve as a city councilman. I continue to work for my city.
All right, so spill the beans before we get out of here. Any future plans about any other office you may want to run for in the future? It can be 5 years from now. It can be next year. Anything?
So I don't have a crystal ball in front of me.
Okay.
I'm not going to pull out a Miss Cleo impersonation, but I will say yes. I do have plans for the future. Depends on what doors open up soon. But until that time, I am going to continue to serve the city of Chesapeake as a council member to the best of my ability.
Don Carey, thank you for joining us on Spartan Life Radio on this Sunday afternoon. We really appreciate you. And before you go, you have to give people your email address or however you tell people to get in touch with you. Please let them know right now.
Sure. You can contact me by email, dcarey@cityofchesapeake.net, or you can give me a phone call. My cell phone is 202-257-6749. Again, I'm here to serve. Any issue that you have, I will research. I will try my best to help bring a resolution to it if a resolution from the government standpoint is warranted.
John, give us that phone number one more time slowly, please.
So I'm sorry, area code 202-576749.
You are doing a great job. Hang in there. Know that you're welcome on these airways whenever you've got something going on. Likewise, if we see something in Chesapeake going on we might want to ask you about, we will give you a call. And we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you. And I would love to come back and talk about some of the initiatives of our nonprofit as well. There'll be some things that we're doing now that the pandemic is calming down. One of which I'm thinking of our free grant writing and agency development seminar we host at Norfolk State University for 501c3s and faith-based organizations.
Oh, that's big. We will do it. Happy New Year to you and your wife and your family. And again, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you. Y'all have a blessed day.
You too. Take care. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. City Council member, Mr. Don Carey. I'm Cheryl Wilkerson. This is Spartan Life Radio. We will return in just a few moments. Welcome back to Spartan Life Radio on your Sunday afternoon. Cheryl Wilkerson. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We have the guests that come through here. Of course, earlier we talked to Chesapeake Councilman Don Carey. Right now we have a young man on the phone, and he has decided that it's worth his time to, oh, by the way, go and get 3 degrees in theology. We welcome to the program today Dr. Antipas Harris. How are you today?
I am doing great, and thank you for having me on the show.
Not a problem. So first I need to find out about your name. So Antipas, is that the Bible, Book of Revelations, or
yeah, that's right.
Okay,
the Book of Revelation. Yeah, Antipas. The name Antipas was a common name in first century. You had Herod Antipas. His grandfather Antipater was also Antipas. But I was named after the first martyr bishop of Pergamus in Revelation, who was Bishop Antipas.
Oh, okay, all right. And who did that? Mom, dad, son, great uncle, or
mom?
Okay,
my mother.
All of this theology and this biblical background or whatever, does that come from Mom? Did she plant that seed?
Well, it comes from Mom and Dad. Dad is a pastor for almost 50 years, and he's also an educator. So he taught high school English for 34 years. Mom's an educator as well. She teaches early childhood. So it's both educators, both people of faith, and so I think the integration of faith and education has been just part of my DNA.
I would agree so. So you are the assistant professor of practical theology and the director of the Youth and Urban Renewal Center at Regent University.
No, I was. I used to be.
A
associate professor there. Yeah, I was tenured at Regent. But I resigned from Regent, I think it was 2017, and I started the Urban Renewal Center in Norfolk, Virginia. And then after I started the center, Bishop T.D. Jakes in Dallas, Texas, invited me to come to start Jakes Divinity School. So I went out to Texas and started Jakes Divinity School.
Okay.
And it's doing very well. And I decided that I felt called back to the Urban Renewal Center, so I'm back in Norfolk.
Okay, so let me get it straight now. Okay, 'cause I cannot keep up with you. I was reading your bio, and I was like, okay, and I got the order all wrong. And so what encouraged you to come back here? What was it? Did you wake up one morning and you're like, you know what, I'm doing good work here in Dallas, but something is telling me to go back? What was that like?
Yeah, I came back to several reasons why, but one of the reasons is because I came back to Norfolk last year during the pandemic. And I saw where there was a need to support the homeless population with COVID and all. And so the Urban Renewal Center took charge of facilitating the NEST program that housed people who were experiencing homelessness during the cold months. And we were facilitating a place for them to live and food and all. and support. And it was just, I felt the spirit just telling me, you need to get back involved. Well, I was conflicted because I was also building Jake's Divinity School, and it's doing great. It was in thriving online program. So I was trying to conceive of a way to do both.
Of course.
But,
you underachiever, you know. I
know. But ultimately, I felt called to make the decision to just dive back into the URC and drive it. So I recently came back to Norfolk and pursuing that with 1,000%. Believe that it's going to. We have over 400 volunteers, over 90-something organizational partners. We're all about education, coalition building, and community engagement. We believe that that the communities of faith are called to the public square to support common good. So we're really concerned about the housing crisis here in Hampton Roads and around the country. And we also concerned about the ramifications of the housing crisis on people who are vulnerable and ending up in homelessness. We additionally are focused on youth and youth empowerment through the arts and recreation. We feel very strongly that our efforts can unite the community for positive impact. So that's our tagline. We're uniting the community for positive impact. The future is bright, and we are doing everything we can to be a part of greatness for the future here at Hampton Roads.
The first thing you said about the homeless, that tugs at my heart right there, because we have had some cold days, and I'm just driving around wherever I'm going or whatever. But I think about them, and I'm like, Lord, what is happening with people that don't have a roof over their head? I don't know how they make it. I don't know. I say something for them. I pray for them, say a quick prayer, but I just don't know how they do it. Yeah,
and here's the thing. Some of them work from sun up to sundown. You'd be surprised. The assumptions about homeless people are sometimes misaligned with their reality. Some of them work all day long, construction jobs. They're working at restaurants and all kind of places, hotels, and then they have to go. They don't have a place to call home. So many of them come to the low barrier homeless shelter, or there are other expressions of support for the homeless in our Hampton Roads regions. People doing great things, Celtic youth shelters for kids, Union Mission, Samaritan House. I mean, we have a lot of great support all over the region, but the resources their demand is higher than the resources that are available.
Right.
And the people, and we help, the contribution that the URC is making now, we used to manage the shelter, now in Norfolk, the low barrier homeless shelter. Now we offer services of employment services, and we also facilitate volunteerism and donations for the shelter. So one of the things that we have observed is that people are willing to work often but don't have gainful employment. So we're really trying to help make the connection between well-meaning job opportunities that are willing and ready to support with gainful employment and the need at the shelter. So we are really trying to give people a hand up and not just simply a handout, if that makes sense.
The Urban Renewal Center here in Norfolk, where is it located?
Our offices are located in Ghent. Our offices are located in the First Presbyterian Church of Norfolk.
Okay.
We are an independent organization of the church, but using space at the church. We are a community development corporation, and I'm the founding president of the URC. And so we're a 501c3 nonprofit.
Wonderful. And you said you originally started this what year?
2017 is when we started it, right when there were Alton Sterling and Philando Castile were killed, and 5 police officers in Dallas all in the same week. The pastor of the First Presbyterian Church, I was offering some theologian in residence support for the ministry. and he called and asked if I would have a raw conversation about race at all three of their services. Mm-hmm. And we did that Sunday. And it was raw, and people wanted to be part of the solution at the church, and they said, how can we be part of the solution? At the time, I was thinking to leave higher education and praying about what direction I would go. I had started a center at Regent, and we had closed it down. And so I thought, why don't I just see if I can get the funding to start a center that's independent of the university and independent of a particular church and a standalone nonprofit.
Oh, okay.
And that was the time opportunity. The First Presbyterian Church said, listen, we will stand with you, be your first partner, if you would, start this thing. So I started it and jumped out there. And so that's how we got our offices at the First Presbyterian Church. But now we got support from lots of churches in the region, and we are building even outside of the Christian framework. We're also building relationships with the Jewish community, the Muslim community. We're interested in bearing witness in the public square for common good. We want to lift humanity. So we're uniting the units in the community to form what Martin Luther King Jr. called the beloved community. We believe that we can be a model of what diversity could look like when we work together and empower each other's diversity through unity.
And so has that mission gone on as you thought it was? Has it been easier? Has it been more difficult? What has that journey been like?
It started out like any new business or organization. I had to really try to make my case. And now there's a lot of energy around what we do, and there are certainly challenges. We have financial challenges. We have resource challenges, but we're grateful to the community that is supporting us. And people are giving. We've secured foundation support from the Hampton Roads Community Foundation, the Blocker Foundation, and other foundations that are showing interest in some of the work and interest that we have. So we see ourselves as charting a course and being a pioneer in this space. It has its challenges, but it also has its opportunities and victories, and we're grateful for them.
And roughly how many people would you say have used or you've been able to help or help along the way at the Urban Renewal Center?
Yeah. One of the things we didn't do is count by individuals, but we were able to count throughout the summer by daily guests. Like when we were at the old Greyhound station, we could support 80 people a night.
Oh, wow.
And we were packed every night.
Oh, my
During
gosh.
the day, we were supporting 120, 125 day guests daily. Some of them were repeated, and some of them were new people coming through. But we would say probably about 300 to 400 people, roughly, individuals. But because we were working every day, we served, nearly 30,000 meals since last May. And we also are supporting people to get jobs and get secured permanent housing. So there's a lot of activity that's going on around that space.
And so when you say you are serving the people, you are feeding them, what other services are you rendering?
Okay. From May to December, we were running the 24-hour shelter, managing the operation. So we were organizing clothes and donations, giving away clothes, fielding donations from external agencies, and also providing food and helping facilitate job resources for the guests, all of that. Now, since December 1st, the URC has shifted our positioning to focus on how can we help people become upward mobile. So we're focusing our energy on helping more people get jobs. And also helping people secure more permanent housing. Secondly, we are also working with our pool of volunteers that we have acquired over the last year to facilitate opportunities for them to volunteer at the shelter. And also, like next week, or for MLK Week, we doing a week of service. And one of the things that we offered opportunity for organizations to come in with their folks to feed, say, do feeding in the morning, do feeding in the evening, help with snacks. And also, because we're helping people get jobs, there are issues of bus tickets and clothes for interviews. And we just, over the Christmas holiday, along with our toy drive that we raised for kids, we also did a technology drive, tablets, laptops, and computers, because we needed a computer lab to help people. Some don't have email or don't know how to do a resume, or need to somehow, for workforce development, need to use the computer lab. So community poured out in great benevolence, and we were able to build our computer lab to support the homeless population. So, and the needs are great, because our director, Rachel Cropper, who's the director of Homeless Employment Services and Workforce Development, she is doing taking a lot of individual time with people, and with such a huge caseload, it's a lot of work.
But is it easier now to get those jobs for these people that are homeless? Because, you're hearing all the time there's so many jobs out there. Is this an easier landscape to navigate than it has been in the past?
You would think so. Part of the challenge is skill development in the direction of the particular jobs that are like, if it's in technology, if the person has construction training but doesn't have technology training, well, then there's a skill gap there. So that's why we need more workplace development, because a lot of these great resignation jobs of millennials who are leaving technology and sort of contemporary resourceful type positions that need a certain kind of skill development. So we've even helped people in the homeless population get into community college. And we intend, I'm working with some of the area educational resource institutions to see if we can create new opportunities and on-ramps for people in the homeless population to get training that they need to fill some of the jobs that you referenced. Okay,
so you are really doing that, and even when you went to Texas, you were still doing the Urban Renewal Center from afar, really?
Yep. We had a great team here. Zoom became our meeting ground, and still is now with the new coronavirus. I'm here and still on Zoom.
If you are just joining us, I'm speaking with Dr. Harris, and so I have questions. I just have questions. Okay, so I'm just going to shoot these questions, right? Okay. So, Dr. Harris, tell me this. What is a public theologian?
Public theologian is one who seeks to bear witness in the public square. So how does faith affect public life? And it affects public life in ways that sometimes we don't even pay attention. Even if you look at the landscape, you can't really, in a lot of urban organizations have silhouettes of cities and so forth, to try to depict the city. But what they don't often do is admit that faith in public life is present in the landscape of urban cities. I mean, you can't go to Norfolk, for example, and not acknowledge the Basilica of St. Mary.
Right.
And Epworth Methodist Church. And there is a restaurant downtown that used to be a Presbyterian church, and it still has the same structure, because religious life is part of the physical structure of the city. Every city has tons of little churches everywhere, or mosques or synagogues. Faith in public life is part of the actual visual of the city. That's one. Secondly, faith in public life is part of the moral compass that we experience. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about the church being the moral conscience of society. What he was getting at is that there is the moral framework of what is good and what is right, how to treat people, is really influenced by religious life. And so when we talk about the city or public life in general, how we think about what's fair, how do we treat people? Well, how do we treat people in the workplace? We're talking about DEI these days. That's a moral issue. It's not just a relational issue.
Do people care about that? Do people care about being moral? Do people care about other people? Because so many times it seems as though people just don't care. I'm here to get mine. I'm getting mine. You on your own.
That's a reality. But I've discovered, especially working with the homeless population in Norfolk, how many citizens really want to be part of the solution and want to be part, and people of faith want to be able to extend their faith beyond a weekly worship experience to a life of service, and what that means as it pertains to spirituality. And we know from Pew Research that millennials these days see themselves as spiritual. And many would say I'm spiritual but not religious. But part of the way they think about the spirituality is engagement in life, in justice, in righteousness, as it pertains to how to treat people and the poor and issues of race. And so when you say, do people care how people are being treated, we have an interesting mix. When we saw Black Lives Matter after George Floyd and the streets were flooded with people from all kinds of walks of life, people were interested, and it became very clear to many people that we have an injustice, unjust practices are present in our society. And the immediate response was, I want to be on the right side of history. And so a lot of people are interested in how can we bear witness. And when I use the framework of bearing witness, I'm talking about the bearing of witness of the best that humanity has to offer. And for me, that's God. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about Jesus in the Bible, for example, Jesus didn't pastor a church. Right. He was busy helping people who had physical ailments or had, social outcasts, people who were lepers and were quarantined from society. He was helping them re-enter into society. Think about homeless as being quarantined, and we are helping them re-enter into society. So we are doing what Jesus did in terms of healing the social mallets of society and providing people hope for life beyond the stresses that they're experiencing.
So I told you my brain works kind of crazy sometimes, but do you think Jesus would be on social media?
I think so.
Because?
I think Jesus would be wherever people are. Okay. Whether it was at the wedding of Cana, that we can make a case that turning water into wine at a party was kind of like hanging out at the bar at night. Okay. That's where people were. Mm-hmm. There's a reason they call him a wine bibber. You can't call people a wine bibber who don't drink wine. So he was a social person. Mm-hmm. And so if you're talking social media, I think he would hang out there.
You think he would? Tell me this. Why did you find it necessary, or why did you find it, what's the word I want? Important. That's not the word I want, but it's coming to mind. Why was it important for you to go to Emory, to go to Yale, to go to Boston University? Why was that important?
It was important to me because I want to deepen my understanding of faith and Scripture and find a way to support the future of faith in society and its relevance. So as I studied theology, I was a person of faith already, and so my faith, on the one hand, was also seeking understanding. We don't understand and then pursue faith. We have faith and then we seek to understand that faith. Mm-hmm. So my pursuit of theological education was, I want to understand more and deepen my insight. I need greater insight. And then I want to be able to bridge my insight with why this faith? What's the relevance of faith in the way that we live our lives? And not sort of a personal piety, but how can we cultivate a society that cares and extends the compassion and love that we experience in Christ. So I don't just want to be a person to experience this interior life of faith that is making my life better. I want to be able to extend that good to humanity and show forth the praises of the one who has called me out of darkness and express to them the love that I've experienced. And so I've always been concerned, why do we have such great worship experience on the weekend mm-hmm. and experience a God who is so wonderful, mm-hmm. and then we just come back the next week to do that again? While the world is struggling and so many people are hurting and people are on the street without places to live, does God care about that too? Mm-hmm. That was always in my mind growing up in the Deep South. It was always in my mind. I leave church thinking, is that all that God has to offer, a good church experience? Mm-hmm. If God is that powerful, what about the suffering people and the homeless? What about the children who are being abused? What about, can God do something about that too? And I was born and raised Pentecostal, so cared very much about the Holy Spirit and the work of the Spirit in the worship experience, but I was wondering, how does the Spirit work in everyday life? So my pursuit of theological education is heavily numerological in that way. I want to know, what does the Spirit have to do with injustice in the world? What does the Spirit have to do with the hurting people and trauma and homeless and children who are suicidal and children who are abused and human trafficking? I want to know battered women and injustice and racism. I want to know, what does the Spirit have to say and do about that? Okay.
So what was it like to run a program at Sing Sing? What was that like?
Yeah. So Sing Sing Prison, I was teaching for New York Theological Seminary, and they had me to go to Sing Sing Prison in Ossining, New York, which is Max A prison, and it was a fascinating experience. Now, my background was, while I was at Emory, I was a chaplain intern through contextual education program they had there at Metro State Prison. I don't think it's there anymore, but it was all women's prison. So I had a background, having experienced working, I had experience working with in the prison setting. So when I was teaching for New York Theological Seminary, which was much later, right, after I finished all that earlier training, and I was teaching a course up there, it was an all-men's prison, Max A prison. And all of my students were there because they had killed somebody, frankly. Oh, wow. And all of them. And some of them didn't see themselves ever getting out of prison. But I remember one of my students said, I want to be able to witness to my guys on my block.
Oh, wow.
I won't ever come out of prison, but I want to take what I'm learning down to my block and just, and because some of them will get out, and I want them to be better when they get out. And then he kept reiterating, but, I ain't never coming out. So, but the interesting thing is that in that environment, to see these men who have committed some pretty severe crimes, have been convicted of some pretty severe crimes, to see them wanting their lives changed was transformational for me. Mm-hmm. I have had the opportunity to talk to guys who are from MS-13 and Latin Kings and Bloods and the Crips. I've been up close in person with them in prison. I've seen the power of God touch their lives. I've seen them cry under the anointing and see that the desire for a better life. Mm-hmm. I've felt their pain, and I've connected with them, and I have severely rebuked some for some of the things that they have done, and to see them how they respond and say, help me, I want to be better. It says to me that no matter how tough a person may be, right, that if it's a man, there's a little boy in them. If it's a woman, there's a little girl in them. And that everybody at their core want to be better.
Maybe they just didn't know how.
That has, life challenges, struggles, situations, mishaps, bad decisions, all kinds of things that land people where they are. But at their core, they want better than that.
They want
and faith says that there is a better way. It's hope.
Okay. I've been speaking with Dr. Harris today, and you know what? So I have a friend of mine, Rodney Jordan, one of my BFFs. Okay, he's
Great
one of my.
Guy.
Okay, so Rodney gave me this book years ago, and and you remind me of the author of this book, Howard Thurman, and I would read the book, and I would say, I don't understand this book, and I would reread a paragraph over and over and over, and it's like it's so far above my head. Overall, I get what he was saying, but just the little fine points, my brain and I still have the book, and I still pick it up, and I still get stuck. But you remind me of Howard Thurman and the concepts in that book. And just what you were saying, I remember the quote, keep alive the dream, for as long as a man has a dream in his heart, he cannot lose the significance of living. And I just want to thank you for joining us today. You have made my heart happy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
How can the listening audience get in touch with you? They might want to drop you a note. They might want to offer you some support. They might want to volunteer. But how can they do that?
Listen, there are definitely ways they connect with me. Connect with me personally on Instagram, on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Dr. Antipas, at DRANTIPAS. But connect with the Urban Renewal Center also on all platforms, at the URC Norfolk. So at the URC Norfolk. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and also Twitter. We're cranking out research. We have opportunities for to participate in service, and we're uniting the community for positive impact. So we want you to be a part of this unified effort to make a difference in our community. So please do. You can also go to our website, the URC Norfolk, theurcnorfolk.com. Would love to connect with you, and I want to connect.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us here on Spartan Life Radio. I have a feeling I'll be calling you again, so I thank you for that. Look, I want to thank everybody who listened today. You all are a great audience. We will talk again next Sunday at 12 noon. You all have a wonderful day. I love you. This is Cheryl. It's the new sound of Hot 91, the soul of VA. You all have a good day. Bye-bye.